All right, everybody. Hello. Welcome into this live edition of Believe in Steelers. We are powered by FanDuel. Jarrett Bailey, the coach of our program, Todd Haley. I don't even know what to say, man. It's been almost 24 hours since the ending of Steelers Ravens, and yeah, trying to think of the words has been hard. So we're just gonna kind of go off vibes here. First of all, what are your thoughts just on everything that went down? I'll give mine, but you've played in a lot or coached in a lot of these. You were part of the Immaculate Extension game, and that was a crazy ending in and of itself.
Immaculate extension.
I think this one somehow beat that.
Yeah, Jared, first let me paint the picture. I had my son and a couple of his friends, and their parents who are both huge Steeler fans, grew up in Pittsburgh, Bethel Park, one in Baldwin. So they drove into the Poconos, and the highlight of the whole day after dealing with the kids, teenagers, was we were going to watch this game.
Yeah.
So, me as a former coach watching a game with people in general, if I'm sitting at a bar, and I hear somebody saying something so outlandish, and I'm like, what are you like? Sometimes I can't help myself. So, but anyway, I'm with this very nice couple. I've known them a long time. They got their Steeler stuff on. They got Clover's, Irish good luck T-shirts underneath their Steeler shirts. So it was a big thing. So the game, first of all, they're yelling out things. Throw it over the middle. Throw it between the numbers. That's JJ Watt or TJ Watt's fault. And I understand the scheme, like the one big run outside. It wasn't TJ. It was the safety. Didn't contain and do things. But as the game wore on and my superstitions came out, I felt like I was rooting for the Steelers. I mean, I'm not affiliated with the Steelers. Obviously, I grew up loving the Steelers. So if I had to lean one way, it'll be in the Steeler direction. But, now as a media person, I'm very unbiased. But, I start situating them around the room where they should be, much like my father would when we'd go into Three River Stadium. If my sister and I sat in the wrong seat, following a win or a loss, he'd move us. He'd go, no, you sit there, you sit there. Inherently, I'm way too superstitious. So as that game went on, especially at the end, it felt so scripted that Baltimore was going to win. I mean, it just we go for it at the end of the half. Those 3 points were huge. Then as we got into the second half, you get up, you Austin catches the big touchdown, and the guy that never misses an extra point. It was just, I'm like, this is set up. Ravens have 3 timeouts, 55 seconds, whatever it was. I'm like, this is set up. The Ravens are going to win. And then likely catches that ball. I mean, inexplicably, Ramsey, who didn't have a great game.
Sure.
I don't think, but I mean, he missed times the jump. I mean, that should have been an easy knockout. Even the throw on the scramble where Lamar is getting thrown down and somehow he gets an incomplete pass. So I'm like, the Ravens are winning this game. And then they line up for that field goal and the thing goes wide right. So,
Yeah.
I blamed it on Mike Tirico because as I've told you before, I believe announcers intentionally jinx kickers. And, he said, Tyler Loop, they've searched across the world. This is the guy that has he's made up of the stuff that they want. I'm like, I didn't say it. You can't say it, because if at that point you say, oh, he's jinxing him, then he's going to make it. So I was just like, nobody say anything, and wide right. And I mean, just a huge win for the Steelers.
I got to give it up to Tirico, though. I thought he did a really good job of setting the scene. Usually, when it comes to like the announcer side of things, sometimes, you got guys who don't know how to, let things breathe or really just bring the energy to it. I thought he did a really good job. The game in general, though, 13-10 through the first 3 quarters. It looks like it's just going to be what we expected it to be, which is low scoring, Steelers Ravens, like usually what it is. And in the fourth quarter, it turns into, the OK Corral, and it's just a shootout where I think both teams scored 2 touchdowns in the final 10 minutes. The Steelers scored 2 touchdowns in the final 4 minutes. And let me take off, I'm going to do this. Let me take off my analyst hat. Let me put on my fan hat. When they fell to 7-6 after losing to Buffalo, a lot of people, myself included, were ready. All right, it's probably time to move on, start anew. Might be time to move on from Mike Tomlin. And then you've got the people who are like, they just need to lose out. It's better. There's no point in, trying to, make it to the postseason only to, have what's happened so many times happen again. And then you get a game like this. They go on a run. They win 3 or 4. And then you have a final few minute stretch of this. Todd, I haven't had that much fun watching a game in a long time. And it's one thing to watch the game, and then you see all the stuff after the game. Aaron's mic'd up for the game. He's hugging Mike T afterwards. He's like, oh, man, hey, thanks for letting me come here. Mike T doesn't skip a beat. He says, hey, thanks for coming. Gives Cam Hayward a big hug. Hey, thank you. And as an analyst perspective, I don't know how far they can go. If you had to, gun to my head, hey, how far do you think the Steelers are going to go? I say they might be able to win one game. I don't know if this is a Super Bowl team, though. From a fan perspective, though, after you see something like that, you let yourself buy in. You let yourself get convinced, all right, hey, what the hell? Something could happen where they can make a run. And you see Aaron Rodgers doing Aaron Rodgers things. You see Cam Hayward having the game of his life. Keanu Benton had an awesome game. And the fact that Aaron was able to do this, put up 26 points, no DK Metcalf, having to spread the ball around to, an older Adam Thielen, Calvin Austin, really just, guys, it's a unit glued together with scraps. And when you see something like that, the way that they finished out the season, it's certainly hard to separate analyst from fan, but the most fun I've had in the final few minutes of a game, maybe since I was a kid. Like it's they always pull you back in as a fan, and they did for me last night. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it was, from just the pure fan point of view, without words, man. It was a fun time.
Oh, and when I painted that picture, the end of the story is, we're sitting there, adults are all downstairs. A couple, including my girlfriend, that they don't really care the outcome of the game. Mm-hmm. She's from Philly. She doesn't like Philly. She doesn't like the Steelers. The kids are upstairs going nuts about their own things, playing video games, watching a movie, mm-hmm. whatever it was. And when that kick missed and the people jump up that are true Steeler fans, I mean, it was pretty fun. I haven't had that feeling. I've had that feeling on the field. You mentioned the immaculate extension. I was there. It's like, there's no feeling like it. And, when you coach a long time, you don't have those fan feelings. Like I have them for the Penguins. I've always had them. When the Penguins are doing good, I live or die with every game, and they're on fire, by the way. But it was everybody's screaming and yelling. The boys come out, they're looking over the railing, they're like, what happened? And then it was a free for all. But no, I mean, to see Aaron Rodgers get emotional after, one of the interviews I saw, he clearly, he's a guy that really keeps it close to the vest and very articulate and thoughtful about everything he says. You could see the emotion. I told you, get Freiermuth involved, get the crowd. And as soon as they started getting the football to him, the crowd, the energy, it's one of the one time, I don't know, when they played Renegade, did they stop him after that? I forget, because I told everybody we were with, I'm like, every time they play it, now the other team's going to make a play. And I don't know what happened after Renegade, but when you're on that field or in that stadium, when they play it, it's an awesome thing. So, but I thought it was just a tremendously huge win when you put everything together. Aaron Rodgers at the end of his career deciding where he wants to play. I've said it from the beginning. This is the Steelers' best option for the options they have. Once they let Fields and Russell go, I mean, this was a great setup. And knowing Mike T, I knew Aaron would love that. But I mean, come on. Cam Hayward's pushing his brother and the tush push into the end zone. I mean, there were so many elements of it that were just, you people that don't know, trying to even explain it doesn't even make sense. But there were and knowing Cam and what a dude he is, to see that, pretty special.
Yeah, and look, by no means was it perfect. There were 3 touchdown passes that Lamar had. Lamar only had 11 completions on the night. 3 of them were for touchdowns, all of which were of 38 yards or more. The first one coming on the 4th and short. If you go back and watch it, Jalen Ramsey, it looks like, Collinsworth pointed it out on the broadcast. It looks like he's just expecting a quick inbreaker to Devontae Walker. He extends it out and goes right past him. Easy touchdown for Baltimore. They go up and then they get a field goal. It's 10-0. Pittsburgh's in a hole early. The Steelers get a field goal to make it 10-3. And then they have this 13-play drive at the end of the first half. Aaron throws a pass to Pat Freiermuth, pass interference in the end zone. Mike T makes the absolutely correct call to go. Well, actually, you know what? I'll ask you. Did you like the call to go for it? You didn't.
No, I was yelling, take the points. And throughout the rest of that game, I kept saying, if they had 3 points right now, this is what it would look like. I'm just a believer in tight games, hard-fought games. Take the points. And Mike usually is in that mode, but no, I was against it. If it worked, I'd have been like, yeah, way to go. But I said it before the play occurred. I said, just take the 3 points. The first field goal by Boz was huge because it was a long one, like 53 or something, I think. So take the points. But they knew they were getting the ball at the end of at the start of the second half. So I get their thought, but I would have said get 3, maybe we score a touchdown. Now we trump them by 10, but it is what it is. They won.
Yeah. I liked the call to go for it. I didn't like the play call itself. They ran like a toss to Kenny Gainwell to the weak side where he only had Pat Freiermuth in front of him to block. The Ravens sniffed it out pretty quickly and they ended up with nothing. I would have just gone Connor Hayward tush push there. It worked later on. So that's what I would have done. But they get the ball back at the start of the second half. Aaron makes legitimately maybe one of like the 10 to 15 best throws I've ever seen to Adam Thielen over, I believe it was Marlon Humphrey. I don't know how he fit the ball in, but it moves the Steelers into the red area. They get a touchdown on that drive to make it 10-10. TJ Watt gets a pick off of a tip from Alex Highsmith. They make it 13-10. And maybe it's just blind confidence. But when it comes to big games, the Ravens just seem to crumble. And this is a big game, and they had a lead. And usually when they have a double-digit lead, they also, like Ravens fans will tell you, they don't feel safe with big leads because, them more than just about any team in the NFL over the last 5 years have been keen to blow those leads. And so when TJ gets the pick, in my head, I was like, oh, yeah, they're winning this game. Like, after all of that, it just feels like they're going to win. And then you see the long touchdown to Zay Flowers. And then you see the other long touchdown to Zay Flowers in a matter of a couple minutes. It's like, all right, well, they're really going to have to earn it if they win it. And they did. Aaron marches them down the field, 4 of 6 on the final drive. Calvin Austin has a beautiful hitch and go on Chidobe Awuzie, which causes them to slip, wide open touchdown. And then, like you mentioned, they get Baltimore into 4th and 7. Isaiah Likely makes a really nice catch off a good Lamar throw. Before the game, the Steelers or whoever, somebody had a priest on the field throwing holy water in the end zone. I don't know if there's a higher power or not. I'm not a religious person per se. I think about half of Pittsburgh just converted to being diehard Catholics after the Tyler Loop missed field goal. Maybe it was a higher power swinging it to the right to ensure that the Steelers got into the postseason, but just having that lore behind it now, like, hey, remember that game where a priest blessed the end zone and the Ravens missed a kick to lose the game? All of that wrapped up into this game, into the chaotic final 4 minutes. In terms of the greatest Steelers-Ravens games of all time, this is right up there.
Yeah, and it's a different rivalry. It really is. I think I told you, my first year in Pittsburgh, 2012, we didn't play the Ravens till the middle of the year, and go out to practice. We're fully padded. I mean, it was like full on tackle football, and I'm like, what is going on? And Mike T looked over at me and go, Ravens week. So it's an understood thing, and I'm sure the same thing's happening on the other side. We know Harbaugh has played renegade during practice, all those things, but just a great rivalry. Which for a rivalry to be great, it's got to be fairly even, and this one is. I mean, both teams have done a lot of really good things, but T.J. Watt catches an interception off his collapsed lung, where it collapsed, like, with his big mitts. I mean, that's where the ball hit. I mean, just amazing play. Everybody always asks me, Myles Garrett or TJ, who's better? I'm like, TJ is the better football player. And then he makes that play. That's why, because whether he tips it to himself, whatever you see, I mean, that was a tremendous play by a big dude that a lot of guys probably wouldn't catch. But I was with you. I'm like, oh, the Steelers are winning. And then all of a sudden, things go the other direction, and Boz misses an extra point. Danny Smith's chomping his gum extra hard. They get a big return, and when the Steelers used all their timeouts, I was worried. I'm like, oh my, it's way too early to have no timeouts. And when you looked at
you got Aaron freaking out over the helmet not working. He gets the other helmet. That one's not working. He's clearly irritated, and they're just trying to figure out, getting the play call in. I saw somebody say this. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise that they used all the timeouts, because what if they still had one and Mike T tried to ice Tyler Loop on that kick that went wide right? So maybe it was just meant to be.
Yeah, the coverage by NBC, ESPN, whatever it was, phenomenal to have the priest, showing the holy water going, because that's when the people I was with were lifting up their shirts, their Catholic Irish shirts, saying, yes, so I think the chief was up in a better place, and Dan Rooney up in a better place. Somehow there was some effect, because that did not look good right at the end there. I mean, it looked like it was going to go the other way, and then we'd be talking about Tom, and we'd be talking about Aaron Rodgers. But that's pure joy being in that immaculate extension. The joy that is felt coming off that field in the locker room, knowing you have another week to play football, coach football, it's an awesome thing.
So let's talk about the wild card then. A few weeks ago, when we were kind of rattling down the opponents that, not to disrespect any team, but the teams that you would rather have the Steelers face compared to the others. The one team that we said, don't want to run into Buffalo, Josh Allen, that you just don't want to see them. If you see the Chargers, okay, you feel pretty strong about that, where, Justin Herbert's great, but he's never won a playoff game. That's a team that you feel like you could probably handle at home. And then Houston. To me, and this will tickle a very specific niche of our audience, the Texans are just like the absolute version of the Steelers. And what I mean by that is just like, if the Steelers were like on steroids, they would be the Texans, where they got, good quarterback, good number one receiver, but outside of that, nothing too crazy on offense. And then defensively, very good. So similar teams in that regard. Houston going on the road. CJ Stroud's played the Steelers once in his career back in 2023. Houston won that game 30-6. It was just, good old fashioned beatdown that Houston gave Pittsburgh that day. But a very different team are the Steelers now than what they were back in 2023. And so are the Texans. In terms of how I can see this thing going down, I see a world where the Steelers win this game. It's in their building. It's the first time that they've had a full capacity home playoff game since you were on the staff against Jacksonville back in the 2017 season. So it's been a long time coming for a fully packed Acrisure Stadium to have a playoff game. The Steelers enter the game 3.5-point dogs at home. I see a world where they win this game as long as they are able to limit Houston offensively, which again, they don't have, a ton of high caliber players that horrified of. It could very well be, just a low scoring, which we thought it would be this past week. So, don't quote me on that. But it could just be a low scoring game that the Steelers hang around in and just make the right play at the right time to escape with a win and move on to the divisional round.
Yeah, you and I have discussed this some, of who would be the best, opponent to have a chance, and I think I agree. Their defense is really good, but what they really are is fast. So, we saw them taking care of the field right after the game and things like that. But, you can, a lot of funny things can go on with the turf and
especially
all
at
that.
Acrisure, where that's one of the more infamous fields. And it's just like, all right, what's going on here?
But the silver lining is that that field can slow down a really fast offense or defense, and what the Texans have, they're really good, but they're really fast. So that could be a little equalizer, I think. I don't know what the weather report is. I mean, we don't believe the weather people anyway, but I gotta believe it's going to be cold. I gotta believe the Steelers are hoping for kind of miserable weather. That would, I think, neutralize or give them a little better advantage. I think the line's probably right, but I see a path the Steelers win for sure.
And, if you're really superstitious about things, so this is the Monday night playoff game, which I think is stupid to begin with, but that's a whole other conversation. But the Steelers Monday night at home, the Steelers have won 23 straight home Monday night games, which is such a stupid stat that I don't think will ever be replicated ever again.
The last one they lost was like with Chuck Noll or something.
Yeah,
right?
like 1991, I think was the last time they lost a home Monday night game. It's absolutely absurd. In terms of the weather, high of 41 on Monday, low of 24. Obviously, being late into the night, it'll probably be closer to the low. Don't know if snow is going to happen, but that would be a nice little added factor for the Steelers if it were to happen. So again, historically speaking, this game seems to favor the Steelers. Our friends at FanDuel have Houston favored. I agree with you. I think the line's probably right, hovering right around that field goal line. 3 of the 6 games this weekend, by the way, have that same spread. Patriots, Chargers. The Patriots are favored by 3.5. Eagles, 49ers. The Eagles, they are now favored by 4.5. That line has moved a point. So, similar odds around the NFL for Wild Card Weekend. You and I are going to talk a little bit more in depth about this game on Friday, but like I said, there's certainly a path where this does work in favor of Pittsburgh if they are able to, take me through it. Being a team, you were with the Cardinals when they went to the Super Bowl. What's the difference between playing, on an indoor turf compared on outside grass in January? What does that do for an offense and the speed element?
Oh, it's night and day. I mean, when I was with Kurt Warner, we were in Arizona and the roof you could open. And the owner Mike Bidwell loved to show off the stadium when the helicopters or planes went over, and he wanted to have it open. And we would have to go to him and Mr. Bidwell, we have the best indoor throwing quarterback in the history of the league. Do not open the stadium, and he would change his mind and close it. So it's a big thing. I mean, CJ Stroud, he played Ohio State. I mean, weather and things like that aren't going to affect him. My biggest thing is just that, even the kicker loop, you saw a slight little slip when he was planting his foot. So, that field can be a problem. So with the defense that is so lightning fast, whether it's Anderson or the corners, I think it's a little bit of an advantage to guys that have played on that field a bunch.
Somebody tuning in, a Houston Texans fan, clearly saying the Texans will win the Super Bowl. I don't know about Houston. I believe in their defense very much so. We know how good Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson are. Secondary wise with Stingley. They have they've drafted well, and they've also spent money appropriately when it comes to adding pieces to that defense. D'Amico Ryan's scheme, they're a quarters heavy team. He's a really good defensive minded guy. And I think that, bringing him over and the job that he's done with CJ Stroud, they are one of the more up and coming teams in the league. And the job that they've done to go from 0-3 and they've won their last 9 games. I mean, they entered the postseason as one of the hottest teams in football. Certainly not going to be easy for Pittsburgh. And I really like what Houston's done. So, give give them their props where it's due for sure.
Yeah, I love, the players you mentioned on defense. I love D'Amico Ryans. I mean, he's got great energy, very similar to Mike Tomlin in a lot of ways. He brings it. You saw Mike, headbutting defensive players, and I mean, there's an energy there on the sideline that I appreciate and love. But they do have a very young coordinator that struggled early, I think, in trying to figure it out. But he's got his feet under him. And now you're seeing the offense start to come to life. So, if I'm a head coach, last week was easy. Smash the run. And I get it. Derrick Henry had 100 yards, and early on, everybody I'm sitting with, oh, we're done. We can't stop Henry. But they eventually smashed it.
Yeah,
they really did, and I'm sure that's all that was being said all week by Mike T and the staff was smash the run. But now Houston, you look at them, you can't really go in with that mantra of smash the run. To me, the big person in that offense is Nico Collins. I would think you can't let him beat you, because CJ is not really a runner. He might take off and run a little bit, but I think it's a little more complicated this week, defensively anyway, because last week it was easy. Don't let Derrick Henry beat you and contain Lamar. And then after that, just, see how it plays out. But, Houston's kind of an enigma. I don't know if they have an identity on offense. So as a defensive minded person, Mike, Terrell Austin, where do you start with that? Is it just fundamental defense, play both areas? You saw the 5-man fronts. I mean, they were in a 5-down look almost every play of the game, where Baltimore could have easily just started to sling it around and it could have been a problem. But as a defense coordinator, you're looking at an offense like, what do we have to do? Because they're kind of like the Steelers. They run it good some, they throw it good some. There's no real identity.
And for Houston, again, we'll dive into this even deeper later on in the week. But for Houston and for the Steelers offense with Aaron, we know how smart he is pre-snap. He can diagnose a blitz in his sleep. For Houston, that's a team that can just get pressure with 4. And I think that's the biggest thing with that I would worry about with the Steelers is that, you're not going to face too many blitzes more than likely, but are you going to be able to consistently slow down Anderson and Hunter to a point where they have to start blitzing, and then that'll open up stuff, if I could speak, over the middle of the field. 4 guys like Freiermuth and 4 guys like Jonnu Smith and even DK Metcalf on inbreakers. So that's my biggest worry for the Steelers is that if Houston's able to just get sustained pressure with 4 guys, then offensively it's going to be hard to break them out of that.
And Baltimore, I think big picture, going back to the Browns game, it was all about Myles Garrett, not letting him wreck the game. And going into Baltimore, I didn't really feel that. And during the game, I didn't feel that. I mean, the Steelers' offensive line really held up really well, and Baltimore didn't pressure a whole bunch. But now when you're talking about Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter, it's kind of an in-between. Neither one of them are necessarily Myles Garrett, but they're really good.
Yeah.
So where do you help? Where do you put the extra tight end? Where do you chip? Those are the things that you got to really worry about when you got 2 really good outside edge rushers.
Yeah, and you got to remember, earlier on in the season, they faced the Buffalo Bills. They sacked Josh Allen 8 times. It's the most time that Josh Allen was sacked in a game. And that's a good Buffalo Bills offensive line. So by no means is that a unit that can be taken lightly. Todd and I will dive into that later on in the week, but still at a loss of words for last night. Try to put it into words as best as I possibly could. But a very fun end of the game, a very memorable end of the game, and everything that happened after the game really just put things into perspective, I think, for the Steelers, where coming into the season and even before the season, where they hadn't signed Aaron yet, but like everybody knew, all right, it's going to be Aaron. It's just a matter of if, not when. So many people in our line of work, we're just all right. Yeah, Steelers. This is where the bottom caves in. They're gonna go 6-11, 7-10. We saw what Aaron Rodgers and looked like with the Jets. The Steelers are just trotting out another retread quarterback. What's the end game here? And Aaron Rodgers throughout the season played well. He hasn't thrown an interception since November 9th.
Knock on wood.
Protected the ball well. Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope that continues. But he's proven everybody wrong. And the Steelers have proven everybody wrong. And, for a team like that who just faced a ton of criticism coming into the season, everybody saying, yeah, this isn't going to work. They won the division. And it doesn't matter how they got there. And it's, completely fair to say, oh, well, it took them probably a little bit longer than it should. And that's fine. But they did it. And coming into the season, there wasn't hardly anybody that was expecting them to be wearing the T-shirt and the hat at the end of week 18. And so a resilient group, and it was a very fun year to be a fan of the team and to cover the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's always going to be naysayers. I've been steadfast in my belief in Mike Tomlin's ability to get the team ready. I thought Aaron Rodgers was the best option, as I said. I'm sure he's enjoying this, but it's you don't know what's going to happen. What I will say is last year at this time with the team they had, I was like, they can't compete with these playoff teams.
Sure.
So it was completely not shocked when they weren't able to win. But I do think this team is better because of Aaron, because of DK, and just because of the continued growth, the addition of Gainwell, Ramsey coming over. Now he needs to play better, mind you, but I feel better about this team going into wild card weekend as division winners than I did last year.
As do I. We'll be back later on in the week on the Believe in Steelers podcast to get you all set for Steelers Texans. So if you're watching the Believe YouTube channel, please be sure to subscribe. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a comment, leave a review, do all that fun stuff. Todd and I will be back later on Believe in Steelers. Take care.